Gold viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold Learning. And we are preparing for our new symposium that's coming up here in October. It's called the Latest in Lactation Symposium here at Gold. And here with me today, I have a special guest, and that is one of our speakers, Helen Gray. Welcome, Helen.
Hello.
It's so lovely to have you here with us. First of all, tell us, where in the world are you?
I'm speaking to you from London in England, which is where I live, but I'm actually originally from the United States.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So, Helen, you will have a presentation with us here at Gold titled Lactation Consultants in Today's World, a Global Perspective. And I'm looking forward to it so much because lactation consultants play such an amazing and important role in today's world. And I feel like their role is getting bigger, and with social media even further reaching as well. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to talk about you first. You have such a wonderful background, and what I found amazing and very interesting is your background originally was in anthropology and human evolution. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I originally studied archaeology, and my specialist area was the Neanderthal time period and looking at human behavior. And anthropology, well, it covers evolution, physical evolution, and so we learned all about fossils and human locomotion and human reproduction and all of the evolution of that, and also culture, because that's obviously something very, very particular to humans, is that we are so embedded in culture, and culture has such strong influences that can really even contradict some of our biological urges. And parents today do find, they have a million questions and worries, which you can often see is that contradiction between, babies need to wake up at night and the babies need to be fed and comforted. Those are, you've got culture and biology not always sitting comfortably together. So I really see that in birth, breastfeeding, and parenting. Those two realms have almost, well, they're sort of collided and overlapping. So when I became a lactation consultant, or first I became a breastfeeding counselor, there were so many lessons that I learned about in my previous academic life that made total sense in the breastfeeding world.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think that background really was beneficial for you too, because, breastfeeding, I mean, that, the biological act and the nurturing of it, right? And, I mean, we have done this as humans, since the beginning of our history, right? And so that background, and that's why it makes probably perfect sense for you, seeing these differences between society and the biological need and urge that we have, and those not always well sitting together. So from your perspective, you probably have a really good understanding from that. So now you are the joint coordinator of the UK steering group of the World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, when I started in breastfeeding support, first of all, of course, I was a mom who had a terrible time with breastfeeding. And if only one person in that first week had even known the slightest thing about breastfeeding, so much could have been avoided. And I found my local La Leche League group was like a village for me, because I met other mothers with children and babies, and I was an American living in the UK, so I didn't have my own network or family around. And eventually I trained to become a La Leche League leader, and I led local breastfeeding support groups. And it was constant. I live in an area with one of the highest birth rates in Europe, and the phone just never stopped ringing. And there were just so many mothers in so much trouble. And of course, dads who were really concerned as well. And it really was, it's quite discouraging, because it felt like I was constantly fishing families out of the water. And so eventually I got really frustrated with that. And I felt like if I could just go upstream and change some of the policies and poor practice that were setting these families down on a very difficult road, that some of these problems could have been avoided. And so I got more interested in working in policy. I joined my local hospital's maternity committee and chaired that for several years. And when the WBTI, the World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative project, was introduced, Arun Gupta from BPNI in India, that's the IBFAN group in India, Breastfeeding Protection Network of India, came and explained how they had taken these 10 key policies from the global strategy and made this tool where you could assess the country for how well they implemented. Do they have a national policy? Have they implemented baby friendly? Have they implemented the code and legislation? Maternity protection in the workplace, all of these basic things that are outlined in numerous international instruments like the Innocenti Declaration, but the global strategy really summed them up. And I thought, well, that's what we need, because nobody's ever looked at the UK to see even where we are, even a baseline assessment of all of those things. Baby Friendly always report very thoroughly on their own program, but nobody's reporting on maternity protection in the workplace, or how many breastfeeding support groups we have in the community, or anything like that. So that's what drew me to that. It's just a really simple way to get a snapshot, sort of baseline assessment of where we are. And it was so powerful to distill it down to, it's still a lot. It's still 10 areas of policy to monitor, and that's a lot, but it just gave me a lot of insight into where the country was coming from and going to, and the comparison with the other countries is you get a lot of insight into that.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I can only imagine. And the details you got to see there, and yeah, keeping also track of all these, it's a lot of work, right?
Yes, and I want to thank Gold, who invited Claire Maynell, my colleague, and me on at the very beginning of our work to introduce it. I think we were the first people to talk about the WBTI in that sort of international forum. And we've actually had response from people in various countries who said, we saw your talk and we want to do it in our country. Now, how can we get started? So
Wonderful.
thank you to everyone at Gold.
Great, making these connections. That's absolutely good. Wonderful. Okay, let's also talk about your presentation here, the lactation consultants in today's world, a global perspective. And I know you are packed a lot into this presentation. So give us just a little overview here.
Well, I really found, I learned so much as a La Leche leader about supporting breastfeeding families, about counseling skills, listening skills, and about the sort of basic management of breastfeeding. But when I became an IBCLC, I had to learn about so much more, about all these global health policies. As a leader, I knew that the international code was out there, and I knew that we supported it and it was important. But to be honest, I was so busy answering the phone and running groups and helping mothers all day long that I just hoped someone else was out there monitoring it, because I didn't really know what to do. But then to take my exam, I had to learn what it actually said and the global strategy and baby friendly. And all of a sudden I saw, well, we've got these fantastic initiatives and tools. They're very powerful. And not everybody knows about them because for very good reasons. I was totally busy helping people every day. I couldn't have done more. And it's the same for everyone. But becoming an IBCLC meant I had to really go that step beyond and put my work of supporting breastfeeding into that global context. So I really feel that it was that becoming an IBCLC, I remember Deborah Robertson, who does a lot of training of IBCLCs in this country. And I was in one of her classes, and she brought out the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And she said, it's right in here. It's a human right. Breastfeeding is specifically mentioned in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, and almost all our countries have signed it. And that was an eye-opener for me. I always had thought breastfeeding was sort of humble and private, and to think it was actually part of a human rights framework, and that there was much more power to that. It was an eye-opener, and it was inspiring, and it really launched me towards the work I'm doing now.
And we can really hear that passion in your voice. I mean, you really lit up talking about this, and we're so lucky to have you sharing your knowledge here with us at Gold. And it's absolutely wonderful having you here. Before I let you go, one little nugget of wisdom you want to share with our viewers today?
Well, I know that we have everyone from all roles and aspects of breastfeeding support who are watching in the audience. And as you've heard, I've had 2 different hats in this world myself. And each of those incredibly important and valuable. So even though I'm excited about the potential of what my IBCLC training has enabled me to do and what it provides for all, the countries who have IBCLCs in your midst, that you've got, this is a really untapped, an untapped resource with immense potential. But that does not mean that for a moment that all the peer support and the breastfeeding support groups and the breastfeeding medicine doctors and every level is that whole landscape. I love that phrase from the Massachusetts Breastfeeding Coalition, the landscape of breastfeeding, because the breastfeeding journey is not just the 24 hours you're in hospital after your baby is born. It goes on for however many days, weeks, months, or years. And so you need all those people, and every stage you're going to need a different type of support and connect in with the different people at different levels. So I think although I'm focusing on IBCLCs in this talk because it is the topic of the talk, they're very much embedded in this landscape of support, and it takes all of us to support families.
The landscape of support, I absolutely love it. And yeah, you're right, it takes all of us. Well, Helen Gray, thank you so much for spending time here with me, chatting with me, and telling us about your background and your work, and of course the presentation here at Gold. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And for our viewers, if you would like to find out more about this presentation and the other presentations of the symposium, please visit goldlearning.com. This symposium is a 2-day symposium and will be live on October 25th and 26th. And all the recordings are available also afterwards for you if you're not able to attend the live presentations, but the recordings will be there for you. Again, the website to visit is goldlearning.com. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.